Good morning, students. Today we are going to start a new chapter, chapter number 4, data file handling. In previous classes also, we have discussed about what is data filing and what are all the basic things of data filing we have discussed in the previous class. In this today's class, we are going to learn about what is data file and how these kind of the files are handled and what are all the concepts are inbuilt in this data file handling concept. Let's see the data file concept in a deep manner. Introduction. In introduction part, we are going to learn about the program types. Those program types are transient and persistent. These kind of program types are available not only in the Python programming language, it's also available in all computer programming languages. So first one, transient. The transient program is nothing but when the code is available at the time only the output will be executed. When the code is in switch mode at the time, the output will not be stored. Whenever we are running or whenever we are executing at the time only, the output will be presented. That is transient programs. But Persian programs are these programs whenever it is in the switch mode also at that time we'll have a output, which means the output is stored separately. The code is stored separately as well the output is stored separately. This is the meaning of persistent. So we have two kinds of program types. One is transient, another one is persistent. Transient programs will not store the output and persistent programs will store the output. C. The transient data is stored in the computer's RAM, random access memory. When a program completes, the data is deallocated, which means it will be vanished, because whenever we are running the program or whenever we are compiling or interpreting the program, at that time only the output will be there. After closing the program, the output will be vanished. They run for a short time and produce some output, but when they end, it may disappear. These are all the programs are known as transient programs. Persistent program. Persistent data is stored in a file or database. When a program completes, the data is still there. If you restore the program can still access and display its persistent data. Persistent data can be made available to more than one user. Persistent data is generally user generated. This kind of the program produces output and those producers will be saved in the file or database for future purpose. So these kind of the programs mostly we are having in our computer languages. Data file handling. Before starting into this concept, we should know what is data. Data is a raw fact or raw element, means which cannot give the complete meaning. For example, school, class, pen, pencil, book. So these are all raw facts, raw element which cannot give the complete meaning. While these kind of the raw facts or raw elements, while it is in process, at the time it will give the meaning, because after processing the data that will be an information. So those kind of the raw material or raw data or raw fact are going to be used here in this concept, and those data are saved in the file, and how we are going to handle those kind of the data along with files. That is the concept of data file handling. So in commonly in computer languages, whenever we are creating the program, at the time we used to type the program first, and then finally we'll check whether the coding is right or wrong before executing the program. Then only we'll allow them to get the output. So here also the simplest way for programs to maintain their data is by reading and writing text files. So we'll read after writing the program. In our day-to-day life also, the business operations or some other main things, the real-time objects are relying in the files only. How? Let's see the employee details. If we see about employees in one company, the company has one record about the employee information, when the employee has joined and what is qualification and what are all the work the employee is doing and how he is working, performing, everything can be stored. That is the employee details in a file. Like that, the inventory programs also in a shop, what are all the products they are buying and what are all the products they are selling and how much they have bought and how much they have purchased. Those kind of informations can be stored in files. An account system, mostly in a bank and offices, they used to maintain the record of the accounts, transactions. Those are kept in the file. So in our day-to-day life also, the file is playing an important role because everything is stored in a file format because every concepts and everything's in a important one. Files. Let's see about files. A file is some information or data which stays in the computer storage devices. Usually, whatever the program we are making, it can be a Word program or it can be a PowerPoint program or it can be a Paint program or it can be any kind of the programs we can store for future purpose. So we already know about the different kinds of file like our music files, video files and text files we can segregate separately. As well, the Python also giving you easy ways to manipulate those files. How we can use those files? So generally we divide files into two categories. Those files are text file and binary file. Most commonly we are going to concentrate on these two concepts, text file and binary file. So the text file are simple text where as the binary files contain binary data. The text files are the normal alphabets combination of numbers. Those kind of the files are known as text files. But binary files are only it has the combination of zeros and ones or mnemonic codes because which computer can understand, that is the binary code which is only readable by computer. Next, for this file handling concept, the important thing we should know about what is file input and output. So this is one of the important thing which we have to have in our each and every program of the Python programming languages. Like in the C, C++ and Java language, if you want to do some mathematical concept or if you want to do some particular concept means the predefined function is already stored in the library. So we'll access that and we'll use that. Like that, here also we are going to use these kind of the file input output from the Python library. Let's see what is file input and output. Files are named locations on disk to store related information. They are used to permanently store data in non-volatile memory. For example, hard disk. Already we have learnt about that, the persistent program. In this persistent program, all the programs output will be saved separately. It can be in the primary memory or secondary memory. Since random access memory is volatile, which loses its data when the computer is turned off, we use files for future use of the data by permanently storing them. Why we are storing? Because if whenever the computer is getting switched off, at the time the data will be lost. So to avoid such things, we are keeping the files as a record or output for future purpose. So when we want to read from or to write a file, we need to open it first. Here the file input output, the file input means the whatever the file inputs we are giving in the program, those are file inputs, and whatever we are getting as a result, those are file output. When we are done, it's need to be closed so that the resources that are tied with the file are freed. Here the file input output if we are going to use means it has to use in a proper manner. So the steps are there. We'll see the step one by one. The flow of data, how the data will be flowed. For example, we are the user and the hard disk where we are going to store the output as a file. So the program in RAM. So whenever we are accessing the program, the file of the input also will be saved, and whenever we are executing the program, the output also will be stored. And whenever we are reading the file as a output one, at the time also it will open the input. So input file and output file are stored separately. Whenever we are open the input file, we'll get the output, and whenever we are open the output file, we'll get the input. That's a flow of data. Whenever we use to access the input, it will produce the output later. As well, whenever we read the output, at the time it will show the input. That is the flow of data. The next one is why we are using the file. What is the need? As we discussed already, nowadays in our day-to-day life, we are dealing with files and concepts only, because everything is important nowadays. We are keeping the files to be stored for future purpose. For example, see this diagram. Here we have the Python program and the external file. External file means it can be output file or it can be any other file. So whenever we write the file, means whenever we read the file, read the input, we'll get the output that is stored in the hard disk. Whenever we read the file, that will be produce the input to check the coding. That is the use of files. Write to file for saving purpose and reading the file as a input one. That's the purpose of using files. Next, what is the need to use files? See, a file is some information or data which stays in the computer storage devices. We are storing these kind of the files for better in future to handle or to access those things. Here the Python gives you easy ways to manipulate these files. We use 3 files for our future purposes. These files are used in a future purpose. In future we will be using the stored files. So after storing, whenever we need, at the time we will access those things. For example, the important documents, the assets paper or bond are kept safely for future use. Like that, in each and everything are stored permanently for future purpose. See, when we want to read from or write a file, we need to open it first. When we are done, it needs to be closed so that the resources that are tied with the file are freed. Here the file concept comes under the 3 following steps. If we want to create the file in the Python programming language, we need to follow the 3 steps. First one is we have to open a file. Then we have to read or write. It's depend upon the programs users wish. And the third step is close the file. This kind of the steps will be varied from the different computer languages. In C language and C++ language, they are having a different steps to create the file. But in the Python language, we have only these 3 steps: open a file, read or write, and close the file. And here we are going to learn about the data file operations. The data file operations, what are all the operations that we are going to do in this file concepts? They are creating a file. We are going to creating a file, that is one of the operation, and traversing a file for displaying data on the screen. What do you mean by traversing? Traversing means going each and every element and accessing it. That is a traversing a file for displaying data on screen. And the third one is appending data in file. The appending data already we have studied in the Python concepts like strings and list. So appending means the particular element will be added in the stored element or stored series of element. That is appending data. And the fourth one is inserting data. Inserting data means an element can be inserted in between of 2 elements, or it can be inserted in the first place or in the last place. It's depend upon the user's wish. And the fourth one is inserting, and the next one is deleting data from a file. If we want to delete a particular element from the series of the data, we can delete that. And creating a copy of the file. We can create a copy, means the duplicate copy of the original one we can keep. And updating data in a file, how we can update the data or elements in the stored series or stored elements. File types. Here already the previous slides we have discussed about the file is having two kinds of files, that is text file and binary file. So before we discuss these files operation, we should be aware of the file types. Python allows us to create and manage two types of files. One is text file and second one is binary file. The text file contains the combination of alphabets with numbers, and the binary file, it has and it produces the output as zeros and ones for computer understanding. Let's see the text file. See, the text file stores data in the form of alphabets, digits, and other special symbols by storing their ASCII values and or in a human readable format. It can be stored in the high level language of data so that the humans we can understand, as well one form in the high level language as well in the ASCII code also. For example, any file with a .txt, for example, whenever we are creating a notepad, it is a text document. Wordpad, it's also a text document, and MS Word, that's also text document. These are all that comes under text files. And whereas the binary file contains a sequence or a collection of bytes which are not in a human readable format, because it's always in the zeros and ones form. Whenever we see the binary file, it's a combination of zeros and ones or mnemonic codes. So these kind of the mnemonic codes or the binary level language, which means the machine level language for computer understanding, it is always for computers understanding. So you may have a doubt that we are having high level language as well. We know the high level language, whenever we are typing in the computer, we are typing as a high level language for humans understanding. For example, I am typing Python in the keyboard. It's a high level language. So while I type Python in the keyboard, it is automatically displayed on the screen. Immediately, one thing is inside the computer, it transfers from high level language to binary level for computer understanding, and for our understanding it is transferred and translated, that is known as assembler. Assembler is a thing which translates from high level language to low level language or low level language to high level language. That is the text file and binary file. Let's see the binary files. Binary files are any files where the format isn't made up of readable characters. It is not a readable character file. Binary files can range from image files like JPEGs or GIFs, audio files like MP3s, or binary document formats like Word or PDF. In Python, files are opened in text mode by default. That's a default mode is text mode. After that we can change into a binary mode. Now we are going to learn about opening and closing files. How we can open and close the files. So automatically we have come to know the point, that is, if we want to open a file, means we have to open with open keyword which is available in the Python language as open function. And the second step is we can read or write, the processing the data. And the third step is closing file along with the close keyword which is in the Python library as close function. So according to that, we'll have these kinds of the opening and closing files. Let's see each and everything. Opening files. To handle data files in Python programming language, we need to have a file variable or file object or file handle. So each and every program, if we want to access the program to get the result, we need to have one storage area. That area is known as variable, or we can call it as file object or file handle. Object can be created by open function or file of function. And open function is a keyword which is always available in the Python programming library. It is a built-in function because when the Python programming language was developed, at the time itself, these kind of the built-in functions are stored separately. While we are using this function, a file object is created which is then used for accessing various methods and functions available for files. So this is the use of opening files. Now, how we can use this open function? See, a file object is returned by open function which needs name of file along with its path and file opening mode. So simply we can't use the open function. We have to have this open function along with file variable or file object or file handle. Let's see the syntax of the open function. The syntax of the open function is the structure of the open function. First, we should have a file variable or file object or file handling. And next that equal to open. Open is a keyword, or within the parentheses, we should have a file name and along with what kind of the mode we are using, either read mode or write mode. Read mode is for output. Write mode is for input, or we can give file equal to open name comma mode. We can use either this or that. Modes for opening a file. So what kind of the modes we can have in the open function? So the read R and write W and append A. Read R is used to see the output which is stored already, and write W mode is used to make a input in the coding, and append A is used to add one element at the end of the sequence. These are all the modes for opening a file. Now see some of the operations on open function. So these are all the modes that we can have along with the open function. R opens a file for reading only by default, and W opens a file for writing only, deleting or earlier contents, and A open for files for appending, and T opens file in a text format, and B is for binary format. Like that, some of the operations are listed here. First example. See, I'm going to have a first example of Python code. First, f is a variable of file. I'm going to store these kind of the access in the variable f. So f equal to open of test.txt is a text file in a mode. By default, what is the mode of default one? That is a read mode, or so printf. So I have applied this kind of the codes in the program. F equal to open of test.txt. It's a text file, and print of. By default, the text file will be there, as well the default of the mode is read mode, or. So now we are going to print of. We are opening the test.txt. See, whenever we are applying this, we will get the output like this because it is not yet created. No such file or directory. The error message will be sent. We have to create first. Then only we have to write first. Then only we can read. So without the input, we can't get the output. That's the thing. The important thing is when you open a file in a read mode, the given life must exist in the folder. Otherwise, Python will raise file not found error. Thank you.